Hey guys, Tarke here, and I'm going to be doing my predictions for 3.6. Also, just quick caveat, I'm not actually going to be here when they announce 3.6. I'm going to be in Ireland until the 26th, and on the 2nd of March, we're going to have Chris himself coming on Bayclass to hype up all the new league stuff. So keep a close eye on my Twitter while I'm away. I'll be doing my reactions there, and when I get back from Ireland, I will then do like a mega 3.6 review video, and while I'm away, I'll prepare a bunch of questions to send to Bex and stuff, so there will be a lot of 3.6 news coming, but if you're wondering why I haven't got a video out right away when it's first announced, it's because I'm away. So let's get into my predictions. Now, I've broken my predictions down into what I think the league itself will function, 100% changes, expected changes, hopeful changes, and then a not happening yet section. Obviously, I could list a million things, but these are all kind of like selected things which kind of make sense. Let's start off with the league itself. It's going to be an incursion-sized league. What I mean by an incursion-sized league, in scope, like in function, it's going to work kind of like that. So like Dell, for example, added a massive new system. It takes years to get the balancing just kind of right. Incursion is much smaller in contrast. So it's going to be functioning in that kind of way. The reason why I say it's going to be like that is just what I've been told when I've spoken to certain people at GG. That's the metric they've been using. So not the biggest thing in the world, but also Incursion was by no means a small patch. So that's kind of what to expect. Now, also I expect there to be a Harby theme. Now, if it's not the league coming, it's going to be the one after. The reason why I think that is due to comments that Jonathan made on a Bayclass a while ago. So when we had Jonathan on, it was just before the Betrayal going live, and he was saying how they'd been planning, you know, this new league cycle of they have all these like mini leagues which add together up to Betrayal. So, you know, to break it down here, the league cycle we saw was Abyss. Abyss was just like a filler league to keep people kind of busy. Then we saw Bestiary, then we saw Incursion, then we saw Delve, and then they all, you know, came together, culminating in Betrayal. So with 3.6, I'm expecting either a start of a brand new league cycle, or it's going to be a filler kind of one, just test out some new mechanics, putting something small in, and then starting up the league cycle again. The reason why I say Harby, though, is Jonathan said that originally they planned on doing this like multi-league cycle with Harby as the main theme. However, they made Harby, then they started planning all the mastery work stuff, and then it just made more sense to do Betrayal first. So, you know, I think they will go back to those ideas. Jonathan very much hinted that's something they wanted to do, something they were interested in doing eventually, but I think it might be sooner rather than later. Also, just one thing, even if the next patch isn't directly, like, on the nose linked to Harby, doesn't mean it could be, like, indirectly linked to Harby. So a very brief example I gave earlier when kind of planning out this document. We have Abyss as stuff coming from the ground. They could then do something coming from the sea. And it could be the reason why we have all this stuff coming from the ground, coming from the sea, is because something is scaring them. Like something's coming from the Earth's core, or the Harbies are invading the other side of Rayclass, pushing things across. So they can very easily have things which don't seem to be related to Harby actually be Harby related at the end. And also, the whole point of Harby was it was meant to lead up to something. We had all the lore with the languages, we had the breach portals. It's like, you know, they were just the first force. It's like they are the coming of something bigger, something scarier. So yeah, I'm expecting something like juicy. And also keep in mind we have, you know, PlayStation 4 hopefully coming out. It keeps getting delayed, but you know, this next patch is a big one for them. They've seen such a big boon with 3.6. They want to have something really fun and exciting to like follow it up with. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. Something juicy, something kind of Harby related. I'm also expecting a new crafting system, or an expansion upon the crafting system. Bex had a tweet the other day, and she said, you know your team is working on some good stuff for Path of Exile when you tell Ziggy D something about, something item related from your upcoming expansion, as his response is, what? He even says in the comments, when you expand upon the crazy crafting methods even further, what do you expect? So because she purposely teased items, Ziggy mentions expanding upon crafting methods. I'm expecting even more, you know, expansion on crafting methods. At the very least, we should have some cool item stuff coming, so I'm very excited for that. Now, the 100% changes. This is more just like a balancy kind of related. Betrayal's going core. When I was planning out this video, people kept asking me, do you think Betrayal's going core? Of course it is. The entire crafting system is based around it. They spent so much money on voice acting. I said the exact same thing about Betrayal. People said, but Betrayal didn't go core. Well, it did, just slightly delayed. The absolute worst thing that they could do, but not worse, sorry. If Betrayal doesn't somehow go core, it would be maybe to skip a filler patch to then add it with something else. But 100%, it's going core. There's no way it isn't. It has to go core. It's going core. I also expect some gutting of Breachstones. Even if Breachstones become super rare, they're still a massive problem, because then it will just be a thing where only the super rich will be doing them. They're far too powerful. They need to either nerf the rewards in terms of monetary rewards, so it's not worth MFing, the experience, the availability, or the actual difficulty of it. There are lots of ways they can change it. Right, expected changes. Cyclone nerf. Cyclone is far too powerful. I'm surprised Cyclone has lasted this long. Personally, I think that they'd need to just nerf the AoE by 10. It's clearly far too strong of a melee skill, and because of that, we're seeing melee really dominating PoE Ninja. So yeah, have to nerf Cyclone, too powerful. Self-cast buffs. The reason why I think there'll be self-cast buffs, Chris said it was on the team's radar leading into 3.5. So after our Jonathan interview, Chris was then on Dropped Frames, which is another podcast. If you missed it, definitely check it out. Great stuff. And they talked about self-cast then. And he said that it's something that he hears loud and clear. The team is aware that the community really wants improvements to self-cast, but they didn't have time for it then. So if they didn't have time for it then, they probably have time for it now. If not now, next time. But I think this would be a good time to really focus in on this new whole thing. Also, we know there's going to be reworks happening to totems, since we've seen the rework of Flame Totem. And I think that that's how they're going to do like the self-cast buffs. So for example, you know how in 3.5 the big focus was the cold damage over time stuff? Originally, for the record, I was very kind of sour on it, but it turned out to be really cool, so apologies for that. But they did that, and then they had, and Chaos Overtime Multiplier is just a side thing. I think the leaked Flame Totem and what will come with it, I think there'll be like some mini totem things as just like a side filler, but then the main focus is going to be on self-cast itself. Ways that you can improve self-cast: you could come up with a new stat, you could change how cast speed itself functions both on the tree and items, you could look at raw values. I think Spell Echo shouldn't lock you in place. I think Spell Echo should be you cast and then after a brief delay it does the spell again, so it's fluid, it makes it feel a lot better. Having more instant cast utility kind of stuff is really good. People who say maybe they'll have like a Mirage caster, I think Mirage caster would be absolutely terrible. Like, I think it would be really, really bad for PoE, and I would be incredibly disappointed if they announced it. The reason why I say that, so casting spells in PoE is very powerful. Spell Totem is good, putting spells on traps is good, putting spells on mines is good. Doing cast on crit is good, doing cast while channeling is good, doing stuff with Poet's Pen is good. Spells are really good. The main kind of weaknesses of self-cast are to do with being locked down in place, cast speed, self-leech. If you do a Mirage caster, you haven't buffed self-casting, you've buffed automated casting. And automated casting is already really good. Mirage caster is not the way to go. Change how Spell Echo works, change how cast speed works, some improvements to Spellcaster Leech. Let's go. Soft Chieftain rework. We keep seeing that, they make these new things, they make a new skill, they add a couple of nodes to the tree, add a couple of nodes to Ascendancies. They've confirmed they're doing changes to Flame Totem, they've confirmed they're doing changes to Consecrated Ground, so I'd expect either some new nodes to Chieftain or maybe to Inquis. Yeah, just like a new 2-pointer somewhere. I think that's kind of what they're going to do. As I said, the non-totem skill focus, I think it will be cast related. It could also be a melee focus, but I'm going to put my money on caster due to Chris's comments on dropped frames. More movement changes. I think that we're going to just keep seeing very slight movement changes, patch after patch after patch. Both Chris and Jonathan have said many times in interviews they don't like how fast PoE is. The easiest way of doing that is just slowly addressing stuff like cast speed, slowly addressing stuff like attack speed, slowly addressing stuff like movement speed. So, small nerfs to Queen of the Forest, small nerfs to stuff like shield charge, slight buffs to stuff like flame dash, stuff like running. We're seeing more and more builds where people are just running, using Quicksilver, using Flame Dash. That's the direction they want PoE to go in. Expect more of that. Not only does it feel better to play on a mouse and keyboard, it also feels a lot better on a controller, which is big for Xbox and the upcoming PlayStation market. More movement changes, make more people walk, nerf the fuck out of the movement skills. Curse rework. They keep mentioning how they want to rework curses. Curse rework has to happen eventually. They keep mentioning it, why not now? Same with the EE rework. It's always going to be on my list of things because they keep saying they're going to do it eventually. So I'm going to say, well, why not now? Hopeful changes. These are things that I would like to happen, but I don't think they're in any rush to do. Burn, Ignite, Poison, Bleed, buffs. Burn and Ignite. So Burn and Ignite are in really weird spots. They kind of do enough damage. Like, you can do enough damage with an Ignite build, but it just really struggles when it gets to that super endgame scaling, when you see how easy it is to now scale Chaos and Cold damage over time with the new multipliers. The new Chaos damage over time multiplier and the new Cold damage over time multiplier scales so much easily than Burn and Ignite that it's like, well, I'm someone who really loves playing Ignite builds, but why would I bother when I can do a Vortex build so much easier? Just give them very slight changes. I don't like every single ability having its own multiplier. If they added a Ignite multiplier, it would be one way to fix the problem, but I think it'd be a very lazy way of doing it. I would just slightly buff some base values. I would make some slightly interesting mods on items. By that, don't make Burn multiplier, just make fire damage slightly better on weapons. It's quite hard to craft like good Ignite weapons in that sense. Same with Poison, same with Bleed. Bleed needs like a lot of focus. Burn Ignite just needs a little bit of tuning. Poison works, but Poison works and like I'm doing Volcor's elemental poison, not really in the traditional physical and chaos sense. Perfect Agony is still a worthless node on the skill tree. If they made that actually decent, that'd be another way of buffing Ignite, because you do like crit-based Ignite or crit-based Poison or crit-based Bleed, but anyway. Hopeful changes. Two-handed buffs. I think at some point we're going to see a rework of how like implicits work. They always do their massive implicit changes, how the actual stats on the items themselves work. Two-hand, eventually they're going to do something to them. They could increase the base values, they could change how the attack speed works, lots of different ways, but they feel a bit kind of could just be they made a cool new mod for it. More loot added to pre-existing bosses. I think going back and adding loot to Shaper was really cool. I think that Itziri and Uber Itziri could do with a little bit of spice. If not adding new items to Itziri and Uber Itziri, just changing up the items, seeing slight buffs, as we saw with the Shaper Guardians, would be really nice. I think going back and making old bosses maintain their relevance throughout the league is a really good thing. So I'd be very, very hopeful, very unsurprised if they did it, but, you know, I'm not 100% on it, so they didn't go in the expected changes list. Not happening yet. I don't think we'll see any major, like, super meaningful endgame changes just yet. I think this is going to be more of like a fillery kind of patch. We get a few new cool toys, we get some skill changes, but nothing completely game-breaking. I think it's going to be kind of like just fine-tuning Betrayal, fine-tuning all the master stuff, and then adding in just a fun new league mechanic, aka, you know, Abyss style, aka Breach style, just kind of like just a fun kind of filler patch. Berserker changes. It's been confirmed on Reddit by Bex once again. I spoke with the team earlier this week to check in where we're at with the Berserker Ascendancy. They've indicated that they're aware of the feedback but won't be able to squeeze any changes to it into 3.6. We're being very vigilant about scoping this expansion out. However, they do have some moderate changes planned for the class in 3.7. Naturally, the expansion does include a slew of other balance changes, but you have to wait and see. 1 week to go. So yeah. Berserker changes, if you're desperate for them, not yet. I think we'll see some Ascendancy changes based on like new nodes, because they keep doing it like we saw with Pathfinder and Guardian. I think we'll keep seeing more of that with maybe Chieftain and Quiz, as I said earlier, but no Berserker changes till 3.7, sadly. People keep saying Bandit reworks. Yes, Oak could do with some love. Crate is sometimes good, but most of the time fairly trash. I wouldn't really expect any meaningful Bandit reworks until they next look at leveling. And on that train, Enchants, I made a video. I feel very passionate about the current state of Enchants. It could be a lot better. but I don't expect any meaningful enchant changes until they go back and maybe do a massive rework of how the Labyrinth itself functions as a system. But yeah. TLDR, some stuff is going to change. Chris is going to be on Bayclast, and we'll be going into all of the real 3.6 league details once we have them. If you're not already, make sure you're following me on Twitter, because I'll be giving my live reactions to it. And again, I will be away, sadly, on the day that it gets dropped, which will be the 19th of this month. So, yes, I hope you all look forward to it. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. New league mechanics, by the way. Bye-bye.